Hello, hello. Ba, 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 ba. Ladies and gentlemen, what is happening? Welcome to the live stream this week. Many thanks for the support on Patreon. It's a big help. And let's do this. What do we got? Housekeeping notes. Again, before we start, if this is your first live stream, the chat that you want to use. Actually, I didn't even check my microphone. Hopefully, you can hear me. The chat that you want to use is in the YouTube, right? If you've made it this far, you know where YouTube is. That's the chat you want to use. That's what I can see when we're doing this. That's what's in the actual side of the little, what do we got here? Yeah, this thing. It's in the actual side of the screen, so people will be able to follow along. And that's where I'll be able to see all the questions. So that's what you want to do. Today, we're going to be breaking down some work. I think today's work is from Peter Chapman, and we're going to be looking at it. I think it's a commercial inside of what appears to be a set. But if Peter is in the chat today, that would be awesome. If you could answer any questions, come up, because I imagine that they would. Now it is, what time is it? 6:03 a.m. I've just woken up, and this is the only time that I could do this chat this week because it's getting quite busy, which is good for the big podcast and good for Patreon, because that means I'll have more stuff to look at and more interesting projects to break down and sort of share with you the process. And I'm trying to do a few different things on these projects, sort of in the same vein as the Wonder Boy days, where I'm trying to get more behind the scenes stuff that I can then match up with the finished product. And it is sometimes quite difficult. One, because people on commercials, they don't really like you snooping around with behind the scenes pictures, and then they definitely don't like, I can imagine, the podcast or the clients and the agencies doing this sort of stuff, which is why I can't post the videos on the website. But the behind the scenes stuff could be cool, just because then you can see exactly where all the lights are placed. You know, I can say it 1,000 times. This is what I normally do. If I'm outside, I'd go with a 12x12 ultra bounce, you know, from this side, but it makes it way easier if it's just in photos. So I'm going to try and do that. But it gets pretty crazy here over the next few days. I got 3 days next week, and then I'm off to Los Angeles for a 6-day shoot, and then back the very next week, that same night, leaving and coming back here for 3 more days. So it's about 15 days of straight shooting, and so that means no live stream next week. So I'll probably do a video. I know a lot of people have been asking just to see a basic grading process, and I will be doing that. I'll do just a little video. I'll take a still from next week's podcast. So next week's podcast is a breakdown, and it's really all about lighting references and how you can light 2 references, as opposed to, if a director, if you're working with someone, they give you some sort of references. What should you be looking for? What should you be looking at in order to get that specific look? And I'm just going to go through the process on a commercial about how we actually did that. And it was all sort of modeled after the movie Drive. Well, a lot of it was modeled after that because the director really liked it, and that's the look that we wanted to go with. So next week, instead of the live stream, it'll be the little video, which will be hopefully inside of Resolve if my computer cannot shit itself. So that is next week. Okay, let's whoa, here we go, Keaton. Let's quickly look at the chat here. What do we got? Josh Hill, yeah, doggy. Okay, I see what you're doing. Vouch finally made it. Welcome. Doesn't really get any better than this, does it? In terms of quality entertainment. Okay. Patrick, I've put together a commercial reel for NBC Universal. No specific job or style. They do a bit of everything. Any advice on creating a commercial specific reel? Well, I guess it all depends. I mean, you hear this every time, right? So this is probably absolutely zero help to you. But if you're doing a commercial reel, the chances of someone making it through the entire reel is almost zero. You know, you've got about 30 seconds. I know even people that I like and people that I want to have on the show, if I'm looking through their stuff and they have a reel, which is rare, you know, the higher up you go, the less and less important the reel is. And to a certain extent, the less and less important the website is, right? If you, I don't know, if you Google Greg Fraser, you'll probably find a website from 1996, with Flash, because he doesn't need it. But from a editing standpoint, what you would want to do, you got that 30 seconds to sort of grab people, and even if that, right, you've got about 15 seconds. And my reel is dog shit for this very reason. You probably just want to lead with the good stuff, and lead with the stuff that looks expensive. And looking expensive, you can say, well, that's not really, my style, whatever those shots are. That's not what I want to be doing. But if you're doing a commercial reel, you're doing it to get more commercials. So you basically want to tell people, at the very bottom of the commercial world is you have to justify that people will give you money in order to complete a project. So you want to show off the most expensive stuff. Now, this could be counterintuitive to if you wanted to do a reel that would put you in touch with more people that want to do things that you like, similar to what you like. That would be a different reel. But if you're looking for commercials, for producers to hire you in order to get jobs done, basically, they're like anybody else. They don't want to do a fuckload of work. They just want to find the person that isn't going to shit the bed. They're not going to get blamed for it, and they're going to use you. And probably they're not going to use you ever until an emergency comes up, and they're going to have to shift from their normal person to someone that is available. That's almost universal for how people get jobs, right? You're in this little pattern. Producers are in this pattern. Directors are in this pattern. They have their people. All of a sudden, either someone moves up the ladder or someone moves down the ladder, and the people that they usually use are not available, and that's when you step in, and we've talked about that before. So what I would do for editing, throw your most expensive shit, the stuff that looks the most expensive, right? I don't know, to use the same tired cliche, your woman at sunset on the beach. To anybody who sort of has been around, everybody knows that you can get that shot on your reel. Everybody knows that the hand through the wheat, that's a sort of a tell and a space filler. You don't want to lead with the space fillers. You want to lead with lighting examples. You want to lead with what I can tell is going to be an expensive setup, because that's just, it's like social proof. It's like when, if you're a guy and you've got a girlfriend, all of a sudden, the ladies just start flocking towards you because it's social proof that, you're not a scumbag, or at least you're not that much of a scumbag that someone wouldn't date you for a little bit of time. So that's probably what I would lead with, right? You want to lead with some stuff that looks the goods, obviously, but where the project has scale. Let's see. Let's go back, to the old chat. How can I keep... Well, here we go. Okay, I've been... this is Keaton. I have been having to shoot in narrow, short ceiling hallways a lot recently. It can be difficult to keep light under control because when I bring light through a door, it bounces all down the hall. How can I keep it moody but bright enough for overall exposure? This is welcome to the world of cinematography and solutions. You sort of got to decide. There's lots of things you can do. I mean, depending on the budget level and the fixtures that you have, but always it's going to be a pain in the ass. Like bright walls will hose you, narrow, short ceilings will hose you. You sort of have to decide, okay, well, if we're going to play it, if we want to keep it that moody, how bright do we need exposure? Are we doing a commercial for something where you need to actually see the faces? Have we seen the faces previously in the ad or in the story? Do we just need to see the figures? Can we do silhouette? Can we light from above with, first instinct would be if we, if we're doing some sort of Nike commercial, would be to backlight the whole thing from some source outside of the frame or outside of the hallway and point it towards the camera. That would be the first thing. The next thing would be, okay, we can't do that and not see the fixture somehow. Then I would probably just put, if it's a small, narrow hallway, you're going to need something with a very small profile. So I'd probably think like a light mat or like a 2L, one of those long, skinny ones, put the grid on it, tape it to the ceiling, run the wires down the side. That way, at least you have low profile and it gives you sort of, it gives you areas of exposure. So you should keep it contained so that, the person is passing from light to dark to light to dark. That is all, it's all based on mood and look. I don't know if that would fly for some sort of insurance commercial where you'd never seen the character before and you were seeing them for the first time. That would probably be pretty weird. Okay, Josh. What we got here? Let's do. Oh no, computer freezing. Okay. Let's go, Josh. How's Wonder Boy's career going? I have no idea. The Wonder Boy. I got to bring him back. If you can contact him, I believe he's still on Instagram. If you can contact Wonder Boy, he took a job, which is why he went away originally. And since he's taken this job, I have not seen nor heard from the Wonder Boy. There's been very few. There's been murmurings that he's back in town and will be coming on the show, but Like I said, I can't promise anything. Chances are he's back in, where was he from? England? Something like that. Chances are he's back there. I have absolutely no idea. Hopefully he's going well. Okay. Let's do, what do we got here? This one's from Mark Schick. And this is, how do you learn Resolve? Any online courses or just trial and error? I learned through trial and error. Luckily, I've told the story before, but I was lucky enough to be working in a facility where we had access to Resolve before it became free. So I had a little bit of a head start on everybody else, but not really. It wasn't like someone was sitting down with me showing me the ropes and this is how you do that. In my mind, though, Resolve is around for good, and it's something that, yeah, you can, it's sort of like riding a bike, right? Why am I always talking in analogies? Is it because I'm talking to myself and there's no one here to bounce ideas off of? Maybe. What was I saying? I was saying that it is like riding a bike, right? You want someone to show you the basics, like, okay, how does a bike actually work? Okay, you put the 2 wheels on the ground, you put your ass on the seat, you put your hands on the thing, and then you start pedaling. And then the rest, you sort of have to do it yourself. You can, you want to get someone to show you, well, how do you open up Resolve, right? It's not super easy. It's not super intuitive. It's getting better. But how do you get media in? All like the nuts and bolts, I would imagine that there's an online course for that, or you can just trial and error it. But there's a lot of things, a lot of got-yous, like if you're working with proxies or if you're doing certain workflows. I'm sure now if you YouTube anything, you can find sort of very narrow solutions to small problems. But for overall stuff, I would say it's just something that you have to get in there and learn. Like your process is going to be completely different from my process. You may love using curves. I never use curves. You may love using the lift, gamma, and gain wheels, or what do they call it? What do they used to call it? Broadcast or TV, or they used to call it, or they had some strange word for it. I like to use the log wheels. The log wheels are different from the wheels that sort of default inside of Resolve. But I would say it's going to be, if you're just starting out, it's going to be around forever. You're going to be sending stills to directors and to production. You're going to be setting moods forever. You might as well get in there and learn all the time. Every time you shoot something, go in and have a play, and you will suck. Of course, you're going to suck. It's going to be terrible. Your stuff's not going to look like Tom Pool's. My stuff doesn't look like Tom Pool's, and I've been doing this now. I've probably been inside of Resolve for almost 10 years. It's, well, not that much actually. What is it, 2018? Almost, So some people are skilled at it naturally and have an eye for it. And some of the skills you can pick up and learn, but always getting better, both artistically and in the technical function. I'm not inside of Resolve every day. I'm sure if I was, I'd be better. But just the nuts and bolts to go, listen, all you really need is, and I sort of talked about this on the podcast this week, all you really need is to get to a point where you know that someone else can make it look better, right? Say, you get it out of the camera and you say, fuck, we had this problem where we weren't able to flag off a wall. If you can flag off a wall and just balance the colors, already if you send that through to the director, already it's like, doesn't look like shit. Because the dailies, there was this scene or this particular shot sort of looked like shit. Now it doesn't. So thank you. That's the basics of it. But I'll do, like I said in the intro or previously, I'll do a little video outlining sort of my general rules. But I've talked about it before. It's the same as the photos in Photoshop, right? I use offset a lot. I use the contrast a lot. And for balancing, I'll use log, or I'll just use Resolve's inbuilt tools, but we'll talk about that in the actual video. So for learning, I would say, yeah, search out somewhere to teach you how the functionality of it. I know Alex, what is it, Alex Herkman? Alexis something? The guy that writes the Resolve manual. He's got his own website. I can't think of his name right now. But they have like these giant things on how to use power windows, and it goes over every single aspect of the HSL qualifications, the different curve functions, the different viewing functions. There's so many options that until that opportunity comes where you need that stuff, I don't know if it's worth sitting down and taking a 5-hour class on it, because it's going to go right out your brain. You need to sort of get inside the program, figure out how it works. Then when you hit a problem, YouTube, and then you'll remember. Just keep going until you hit those problems, and then you work backwards. But now, it's a very dumbed down workflow for me, because I'm not actually doing the grades and finishing them inside of Resolve unless I'm in like unless I'm actually doing the grade, which is completely different. I sort of separate that from what would be normal resolve work for a cinematographer. You would just be touching things up and sending through stills or sending through little clips, which the workflow is really, really simple. And we'll look at that in the video, which will be next week. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, Bryce says Warren Eagles. Yeah, I remember Warren Eagles when he was, he's got his little course. I've never taken it. That's it. Alexis Van Herkman. I knew I got somewhere close to it. The Color Correction Handbook. Yeah, I think I still have that book. I bought that book. But again, I don't know from personal experience. I don't know how much I use that thing. I can remember flipping through it thinking, oh, this will be great. I'll learn some stuff. But reading about it and doing about it, it's like reading about riding a bike. You might as well just ride the bike or figure out how to ride the bike or fall multiple times riding the bike. I think it's like that. Okay, here we go. Let's do, what do we got? We'll do one more here, and then we'll get to this little breakdown. Okay, when moving from a regional scene to a national work, does a DP need to own his own lights, or is this something that gets rented? When it comes to camera packages, should I own more than one? No, never. The DP, I don't think, I've never heard of any DPs owning lights. Apart from, some people will own like little LEDs, little mats. It's not like you're buying an 18K and the generator that has to be towed with it, or the generator truck. A lot of the times what happens is you get the job, you get the contacts for the local gaffer in town, or you're flying some gaffer in, and then they'll take care of the gear. You just tell them what you want, and they'll sort of source it from all the rental houses. I don't know. Lights would be for me a hard sell unless it was something small that was pretty uncommon, right? It used to be like light mats were very uncommon, so if you were traveling, you'd want to take some of those with you. It's not the case anymore, really. With sky panels and light mats, they've sort of become more and more popular. So no, I would say when moving up a level, if anything, as you move up, you need less shit. That is definitely true, because it's all about ease. The higher up you go, the less and less you're dealing with the stuff that you think a DP deals with, right? As a cinematographer at the highest commercial level, you are getting paid all that money to focus on the look. You're not getting paid all that money to organize the gear, or to to make sure that you have enough tungsten redheads or something. All that stuff is delegated down the line. So no, I wouldn't worry about it. Okay. Here we go. Let's get into it. We'll do one more round of looking at the chat questions afterwards. Okay, so we're in this set, and the very first thing I would say, looking at this set, is you're in trouble, Peter. You're in trouble with the location, right? Because let's see, will this thing draw or will it shit itself? Okay, it's good. The computer's good. Okay, you're in trouble. Why are you in trouble? Number one, the color of the walls, right? You got neutral gray, or some light shade of gray, which means what? What bad things does that mean? Well, it means light is going to bounce, right? It's not going to suck up any light. It's not like some sort of dark wallpaper or wood that will soak up the light. This is just a flat, and it's neutral gray. Next, it's really not that big of a set. So you don't have a big set, which means that the people are going to be closer to the background. And when the people are closer to the background, what becomes difficult is the separation, right? It's hard to separate these people from the back wall. Also, because of the set, it's not an actual space, so I can't imagine that there's all these walls around you, and there's no ceiling that is natural above you. You have to be facing flat against the wall. So now you've got a little space, you've got people pressed right up against the wall, and you're shooting directly into the flat space. Like, if you look at this, the only thing that shows you any sort of three-dimensional shape is you got the couch, which is in front, which then, acts as sort of separating the different levels. Then you've got this little tiny sort of, oh no, computer shitting itself. I'll just draw with the mouse. You guys can see the mouse, right? You've got this sort of angle on the door, which sort of has some shape. That's really the only thing that's giving it any depth. This even looks like a little bit, I don't know if that's the camera that's producing those edges, but it looks a little bit sort of VFX-y green screen like. this is a fake wall behind them. Anyway, that's all you've got, right? So you're in a very hard place. If you are on location and you were looking at this, you would want to try and light from these windows. Even though those windows are in shot, you'd still want the light to be coming from those windows. Right now, it looks like, it doesn't sort of look, it looks like light is coming from inside the house and it's going everywhere. Right, like this would be very hard to have this light above here, like this. That's very on-set lighting. I'd try and I'd want to take down the level on this wall, take it down as much as you could, so that you could pull out these people, right? But that gets difficult because the people are so close to the wall. So now you're in trouble because you want to light them, so you're probably throwing the light directly at them, judging by the angles here. But you don't want to get the light on the wall, so it's creating that separation. Right now, it's very flat, both in lighting and in composition, and that's partly because that you've been stitched by the studio, but also just the lighting. You're sort of projecting the lighting into the scene, if that makes any sense. So if you were on location, again, trying to light from these windows, pointing probably through this window, probably pointing light that way, and through this one, probably pointing light that way, and then maybe something inside to bounce some light back in to her face if you needed to see more of her. But basically, just get the ambient up from those windows and let everything else go, and that will immediately feel natural, right? That'll immediately feel like what people are used to, because that is what happens, right? Light comes in from the outside. Maybe you place a little practical, and you say, well, practical doesn't really make sense during the day. No, it doesn't. But neither does shooting into shadow. Everyone's not always in shadow, but that's what people do, and that's what people are used to. And I sort of talked about that on the podcast this week, where we are in a business, especially in commercials, of delivering on expectations. And the expectations are that they want stuff to look nice, and they associate, and by they I mean directors and producers, and they associate with what they've seen before, and you fall into this common pattern. And if you are just another cog in the wheel and you're new, easiest thing to do is to just slot into that cog, and you're on the wheel, and things aren't interrupted. But I would say here, I would try and get the light off the wall. I would try and get these people, if it was me and I was making suggestions and we're in this set and there's nothing else we can do, I would try and make the light more toppy rather than throwing it like all of this light, which I imagine is coming from this direction offset. That's a lot of fill, right? We're not getting much shadow there. So the interest, it's very hard to know where to look because it's all sort of flat. So I would say pull these guys out in front of the couch if that was possible, right? If you said to the director, do they need to be in this little narrow hallway? Or in this little narrow part behind the sofa? Can we bring them out and get them a little bit further away from the wall? And then if that was the case, then what you could do is you could place your overhead light, right? You could either have a bounce, or you'd be throwing light up into it and then bouncing down, or you could just have like a light tile, like an 8x4 sort of giant light mat, and then push light down from there. At least it will stay off the wall and create some separation, right? But again, you're not in an easy spot here, but I would try and say fight for some direction, and stick with it. Okay, so that's that one, right? Not really much you can do except pull those people away and sort of change the framing ever so slightly. Try and maybe, if you come around this way with the camera, you could just open it up a little bit, even if it's just a little, like a few steps where these people aren't on the same plane. That just ever so slightly changes the feel of the shot as it gets a little bit more three-dimensional. Okay, now this is where we've gone from the previous shot where we're throwing light at these folks to the situation that I probably wouldn't want to be in, which is we're bringing light from the near side, and we're bringing light from the opposite side of the actual window. So the people have seen the window in the wider shot. That tells me that's where the light should be coming from, if we're sort of going for that natural look. But here, we've got the light coming from camera left. So I would think you would probably want to go from in here to key these folks. So the light should be sort of falling this way, like that. So I would think maybe swap sides. And again, it would help if you pulled them out away from the wall. This is, in terms of composition, I don't know, maybe it was sort of a directorial choice or something for the story that you thought important, but looking down at this lady makes me feel a little bit, I don't know, the discrepancy between these two is so great that it's a little bit weird. I don't know if that was part of it, but easy solution to that would be to prop her up on an apple box or, a few pancakes. Just raise her up a little bit so this height becomes a little bit more even. That's way you're not cutting off the top of his head. And also, we've talked about it. I sort of like just a little bit up at people. It's just a little bit more flattering, and it creates a different line underneath the neck. So I'd say just a little bit up. So maybe prop them up. And then we've got, so again, light coming from this direction and something big and soft, right? Even if you don't have room inside the set, you could actually light it from those windows and just push the folks back so that the angle gets right, so that the light would be hitting this face and a little bit of this cheek, and this would all be dark. And you could probably, you could throw in a little edge just to pull them out from the background. Also, what's going to happen is if you light from over here from that window, what's going to happen is sorry, I'm looking at the chat as I'm doing this. Yeah, Peter, he's a tall dude. What's going to happen is if you light from this right-hand side, you're going to take down this wall naturally, right? Because you won't be throwing light at it from inside the room. So that will naturally fall off. And so that's what I would say for this one, right? You can see that there is shape. Like, it's nice shape on these folks. This is nice lighting. It's just, I don't know if it feels like we're actually in somebody's house. You know what I mean? Like, the color is all nice. Again, you're not really getting helped out, though, by the production design, right? Because you got this light gray or this sort of medium gray. Then you've got this sort of brown here. And then you've got your boy in this little jumper and the yellows. Like, it's not, in terms of production design, I'd be sort of piping up saying, what the fuck are we doing here with the wardrobe? Let's mix it up. Let's change something. Let's put something on the wall that's interesting. You got this color matching this thing. It's all very sort of neutrally. But like I said, the lighting shape is nice. Maybe just reverse the sides. Okay, next one. Okay, so here we are again with that light coming from inside of the room. Like this, I would imagine I'd want to take this wall way, way down. And we're not looking at the lighting. Well, we shouldn't talk about the lighting on her first up, right? Because that's good. We'll leave the good part out of it for a second. I would say this little shadow here in the background would be like, would be the tell as to, I would be annoyed if I saw that. I'd be like, what the fuck is the shadow doing on the wall when we're inside? If the gaffer just put this up, I'd be like, what are we doing here? Like, we shouldn't be having that shadow on the back wall. So I would want to be trying to avoid that. And I'd imagine, I don't know, you tell me, Peter, if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that you're very close to the studio walls with this set, and that's why you wouldn't light from the window. That would be my guess. It doesn't seem like it's in a really big studio to me, but that would be my guess as to why shit is coming from the right-hand side. So I would say this window is blown out. That's fine. I mean, fine. It's not bad, but I wouldn't blow out this window. I would keep this window I would set my whole lighting scheme to that little window. And I would just keep it from clipping so that you wouldn't get these little harsh little edges. I would just keep it from clipping so I didn't get that, right? It would still give me enough edge, because it definitely would give me enough edge if I set my exposure to it. Like if I set my whole lighting to that window. Then what I would do is let's go back to this one. I would take this window and push light through it and have it key her from this side, right? Have it key her from this side. Then that way I would be shooting into the shadow, right? Because we're on this side of her. This is a much better height for the camera, I feel like. We're just ever so slightly looking up at her. So I would bring in light from this side, keep this not blown out, but it looks like it's doing the lighting, but it's actually not, right? Because it's giving you that little edge, but the key is actually coming from the other window. Then I would try and pull her, right? Because this is the first time we've seen her in relation to the wall. I'd probably try and pull her a few steps away from the wall. And on set, you'd be like, man, this looks really weird. Like, she's so far away from the wall now. People are definitely going to know that there's some fuckery going on. But actually, they don't know. They never know. And it'll fall off way more into out of focus, blurry goodness. And it'll just look better because you've pulled away. And again, this is, even though this is really nice lighting on her, you can see that because of the composition, we're going on her to a flat wall. And that is sort of taking the three-dimensional quality out of the image. So I would say try and find an angle in there, you know, orbit the camera around a little bit so that you're not shooting dead into that wall and dead onto her. But yeah, I would say, you know, again, lighting through the window, trying to get to this side of the cheek, not so much light coming from this side. You know, if you do want a little something from there, I'd probably bring something from above, you know, like House of Cards style, where it just adds that little kiss of ambient. I understand that probably they probably want it bright so they can see things, but you sort of have to shape what they think is bright in their own minds. Okay, next up we go to this shot of people walking down the stairs. Now this is down payment assistance and closing cost assistance and something else back there. So this is where you're sort of getting stitched by the whole idea. Now you're shooting. I don't know if this is a VFX shot. Like, did you split the screen down the middle, down this little thing here? Did you split? Is this 2 takes? Sort of a la David Fincher style. I don't know. But these guys are getting even closer to this wall. They're getting even closer to the wall, and there's no windows over there. The only way to get light at them is to spray light at them. And if you spray light at them, you get it all over the walls. And again, I don't mean to keep harping on production design, but gray, 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 white, 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 sort of khaki, white. You know what I mean? It's a lot of flatness, which again, I don't. If they came out looking like this, the people came out looking like this, and the set was like this. This is probably something you would try, hopefully, flag in pre-production, like we need some point of difference. We need white shirts. First of all, white shirts on anybody is very hard. It doesn't matter who it is. White shirts are hard, especially blank white shirts like this, white with black writing. Very difficult to make it look good. But then the aspects that we just talked about, the color and all that sort of stuff, and then same thing. You've got, you know, lighting coming from inside the room, which I probably wouldn't do. If this was an actual location and we only had those 2 windows to work with, I'd probably rig something overhead, you know, lay out like a menace arm or something like that, or a polecat over the top, and try and, you want to angle the light back this way, you know, like scoop it away from the wall and try and get it pushed towards them, so that again, this side has the light, right? And it probably doesn't make a lot of sense in that area, but it makes sense with the mood that we would then set, because right now we just got light coming from everywhere. This guy's getting hit with a shit ton of fill. This guy's getting hit from this direction, that direction, getting lots of fill from the wall. Just all starts to sort of flatten out. Okay, next one. This one, again, you're in that same zone, but I would probably swap it so that we're getting light off of that wall. By this stage, you'd probably be bringing something inside the room. So 3 people in a shot like this, you're probably looking at, I don't know, like an 8x8. I would imagine would get the job done. And just hanging it inside that room would get you a lot. And, you know, again, if we're talking about scales of budget, the very first thing I would think here would be, I don't know, like a sky panel through an 8x8, right? Over here, going this way. So pushing this way. And if you wanted to get trickier and trickier, then I would go, okay, well, on the 8x8, instead of loosely hanging it, let's actually get it on a frame. Let's get it pushed into position, and then we'll put a little honeycomb grid on there. You know, they make, forget the company, but pretty much on every shoot, every gaffer will have grids for the different fabrics, and the grid will just help keep that spill off of the wall. So again, just creating that separation, right? Every time you look in the camera, I'm just trying to think of ways that we can create separation. The other thing in here is that I would notice, which maybe it was a studio thing, maybe it was a gaffer gear thing, would be there's some sort of color shift going on. Yeah, light tools. Thank you, Angel. There's some sort of color shift back here. I don't know if you can see that. That's like purple, and then here starts sort of a different color. I don't know what that is, but that would annoy me because it's like a magenta, which I'm not a big fan of the magenta. I think this color on the wall is a little bit more natural. But again, fighting for separation. Okay, let's do, what else we got? Okay, now, again, I only put this one in here because I would say a fight to get her up. It doesn't matter if it looks unnatural or it doesn't match the shot from 10 seconds ago. Just fight to get her up and then get the camera down. You know, you're never going to be able to pull him down to height, but you just got to get her up, or just change the framing completely. You know, embrace the fact that he's a giant or she's not very tall, and just get down low and make him appear much larger. But looking down is always hard. This is always hard to light, especially when you're doing it from the side that you're shooting. Like this side, very, very difficult to make it look at all decent. So I would say, again, coming in from this direction. So really this is, you know, it's the light ideas are there. It's just the general direction and getting stitched by the location and sort of the blocking, right? The blocking, you want to make that suggestion early, like we definitely don't want him near that wall. Like anything we can do not to have him near that wall, the better. Because then, all right, let's go back to the wide. If they're not near that wall, in the wides, you can light from the windows, or you can put something just above the window facing, blasting this way towards us. So just hanging above the window and edging the whole studio around. So you've got like Kino 4x4s, just all around pushing light back into the set and keeping it off the back walls. You can do that. Then when you go in for the close-ups, you can actually put the frames in the set, right? You can put the frame on the other side of the sofa if they're standing on this side of the sofa, and you can really start to shape it. You're giving yourself lots and lots of options. So I would say the blocking is a big one, but you know, some directors, they say they want to be stuffed in that little corner. All you can do is explain why it's going to look like shit, and then if they choose that way, you know, you tried to help, and you just remember that next time they call. But always trying to fight for just getting them away from the wall, and then you know, looking at that color temperature issue, and then looking at the production design like, fuck, guys, we can't be doing white everywhere, we can't be doing gray everywhere. We need to create some sort of separation. Hopefully, Peter, that helped. You know, not an easy job to make it look what I would say would be, you know, a thick negative. Not a very easy setup to do it in, but yeah, keep getting out there. Okay. Yes, wanted to get lower, but couldn't get the angle with the low height of the walls. Oh, with the low studio. Yeah, right. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, I get it. Yeah, the studio. Fuck it. Okay, that's gonna do it, everybody, for this week. If we've got no questions, many thanks to everybody for coming out to the live stream. And like I said, this will be the last one for what, maybe 2 weeks now, because I'll do a video next week, and then I've got I forget who just sent in stuff. Maybe Tim sent in some stuff with a lighting diagram of a multicam session. So instead of doing a live stream for that, I will do a little video because I'll be on the road and I won't have access to all this shit to do a live stream. So that's it, I think. Hopefully. Let's just check the questions actually before I go. What do we got here? Peter, this has been great. Thanks. Yep, that's it. Boom. Good. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Next week again. Oh, actually, I'm just about to do a podcast with Matthias, who Rob Chu mentioned when he came on the podcast. He also shot with the ARRI LF, which is the new sort of large format sensor from ARRI. He did a really good job. He shot the promo material for it, and he's a fucking killer. He is a weapon of a cinematographer, and I'm just about to talk to him in, what are we looking at? In about 30 minutes, I'm talking to him. So he's going to be the guest after the breakdown. So really excited to talk to him. If you want to have a bit of a Google, Matthias Boucard is his name. Boucard. Matthias is Matias. If you want to have any questions about his stuff or his shooting style or anything like that, he is someone I've wanted to get on the podcast for a long time, and it was just the perfect excuse to call him up and have a chat about not only the camera, which is really, I'm sort of indifferent about the camera. I just use it as an excuse to talk to him. But we'll talk about the camera a little bit and the new lenses and stuff like that. But mainly, I just like to talk to him about his work and what he's doing now and how he's getting it all done. So, yeah, that's next week's guest. Okay, what else we got here? This is, what do we got? Paul saying, hey, Patrick, is there a difference between Ultra Bounce and other? Other, I would assume, would be other textiles. Yes, there is a big difference. Ultra Bounce and lots of other things are going to look completely differently. Like if you bounce off of bleached muslin, there's a lot of people that prefer, for exteriors, bleached muslin to Ultra Bounce. I would say I'm in that camp. I think I prefer bleached muslin to Ultra Bounce. It's a lot less punchy, or I don't know if it's a lot less punchy, but it's less punchy, but it just feels different. The problem is that when you're in a market like I'm in, you're sort of, and the gaffers own their own trucks and they own their own materials. It's not like you can just shout out like, okay, give us the 12x12 of bleached muslin or unbleached muslin. Give us one of those. No, it's like we've got Ultra Bounce and we've got full grid, quarter grid, or half grid. Those are your choices. So sometimes when I say Ultra Bounce on all these jobs, it's really because that's all there is in the truck, right? Going to LA, what is it, Wednesday? And there is a completely different story. You have access to any thing you can possibly imagine because much less common that the gaffer would own their own equipment and their trucks and stuff like that, so they can just rent it out on a per job basis, much like you would. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, Linus. We shot a spec ad in 4 hours with Lomos. Based on your ad with the running woman. Oh, thank you for the inspiration. Yeah, good. Hopefully it didn't turn out shit. Okay, what's the difference between Ultra Bounce and poly? Well, poly is like the material it's like when I say poly, I mean like a 4x4 piece of, what's the name of it? Why is it escaping me? Poly is some sort of home building material. Probably starts with polyurethane, something like that. What the fuck is it? I don't know. Someone in the chat will know. But it's like a beadboard. Like it's completely different than Ultra Bounce. I would never. You don't really use a 4x4 of Ultra Bounce. The poly is literally just a 4x4 or smaller. Sometimes an 8x4. But really, I just use it as a 4x4 if you're going to be bouncing things back in. And generally, the 4x4 is I use it for interiors, and I use it for, edgy fill. I wouldn't really use it for anything else. Edgy fill where you just need a little bit. And the thing with the poly is it always looks like shit when you first throw it up, and you just gotta back up farther, or you just gotta play with the angle and make it soft. Make it the level less. Poly can be you can easily get heavy-handed on the poly, and that's when it starts to look like ass. Okay. Okay, black and white, foam core. Jesus, that's what I was thinking of. Ultra Bounce give more than... No, it doesn't really give more than foam core. Ultra Bounce. I mean, if it did, it would be very marginal. Black neg, no, it doesn't really suck up more than the black foam core. Like, I think probably in that general vicinity. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's just easier to work with, right? Like a 12x12 of black neg, it's going to be really hard to find a piece of poly that big. So, and the 4x4 floppies, the good thing about them as opposed to the foam core is when you unfloppy the floppy, you can just use it in different shapes, which will suck up way more light in very small areas. So I would say that would be the advantage there. Okay. That's going to do it for this episode. If there is no more questions, like I said, many thanks for joining the podcast, joining the live stream, and we will see you in the next one.